In the icy expanse of the North Atlantic, a major international incident has erupted, drawing the eyes of the world to these frigid waters. The U.S. military has seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker, the Marinera, in a dramatic show of force that has stunned global observers. This wasn't a routine stop. It was a bold and calculated move in the escalating global struggle over oil, sanctions, and the power to control vital resources. The Marinera was intercepted in a vital shipping lane between the British Isles and Iceland, a corridor essential for global energy supplies, sending shockwaves from Moscow to Washington and beyond. This ship wasn't just carrying oil, it was part of the so-called Shadow Fleet, a secretive network of tankers with murky ownership and hidden routes designed to evade international sanctions and scrutiny. Experts estimate that 1 in 5 oil tankers now operates in this legal gray zone, making it nearly impossible to track the true flow of sanctioned oil. The Marinera was accused of moving sanctioned oil from Iran and Venezuela, funneling it mainly to China and other buyers willing to look the other way. Its capture is a direct strike at the clandestine system, propping up sanctioned economies, and a warning to others operating in the shadows. Just days earlier, the U.S. had launched a bold military operation in Venezuela, capturing President Maduro in a move that shocked the region. The U.S. then announced sweeping plans to control Venezuela's oil industry, aiming to cut off a major source of revenue for the embattled regime. The Marinera's seizure signals a new front in this conflict, targeting not just oil producers, but the vast transport network that enables sanction evasion on a global scale. Russia condemned the act as piracy, while the U.S. declared the ship stateless and subject to seizure under international law, deepening the diplomatic rift. This isn't just about one ship. It's about who gets to write and enforce the rules of the global economy, and who benefits from the world's most valuable resource. As tensions rise, the world now waits to see how Russia will respond in this escalating conflict, and what the next move will be in this high-stakes game for control of global energy. The Marinera's story is a masterclass in maritime deception, a tale that reads like a high-stakes thriller set on the open ocean. Every move was calculated, every risk weighed against the promise of enormous profit. The ship changed names, from Bella 1 to Marinera, and scrubbed its digital trail to evade detection, erasing records and manipulating tracking systems to slip through the cracks of international monitoring. It also engaged in flag hopping, switching from Guyana to Russia mid-voyage, a legally dubious move meant to gain Russian protection. This tactic is often used to confuse authorities and complicate legal jurisdiction. These tactics are common in the Shadow Fleet, exploiting legal loopholes to avoid sanctions. Ships, like the Marinera, operate in a gray zone where international law is murky and enforcement is a constant challenge. Just a month before, the Marinera had dodged a U.S. Coast Guard boarding in the Caribbean, emboldening its operators. That narrow escape only fueled their confidence, making them believe they could outmaneuver authorities again. But constant surveillance by U.S. and Allied intelligence meant the ship's trail was never truly lost. Advanced technology and international cooperation kept the Marinera under a watchful eye, even as it tried to disappear. Ironically, the switch to the Russian flag became the very loophole used to justify its seizure. What was meant as a shield turned into a glaring red flag for authorities. The Marinera's operators thought they could outsmart the system, but their tricks led them straight into a trap. Their elaborate ruse ultimately unraveled under the pressure of relentless investigation. The ship is now a symbol of the crackdown on the world's shadow oil fleet, a warning to others who might try similar schemes. The game of cat and mouse on the high seas is entering a new, more dangerous phase, as authorities and smugglers alike raise the stakes in this ongoing battle for control. The Marinera's capture was a joint US-UK operation, showcasing their deep military partnership. The UK provided critical surveillance and logistics, with RAF bases hosting US Coast Guard agents and advanced Poseidon aircraft tracking the tanker. RAF Typhoon jets flew overhead, creating a secure bubble for the boarding team. Intelligence suggested Russia was aware and had sent naval assets to shadow the Marinera. In response, the Allies deployed sonar buoys and support ships, ready for a prolonged standoff. When the time came, U.S. agents boarded the Marinera without resistance. Notably, no British personnel participated in the boarding, a move to manage diplomatic fallout. The seamless coordination sent a clear message. Our Their world's top military alliance is dismantling the Shadow Fleet. The North Atlantic is now a battleground for control over illicit oil flows. How could the US legally seize a Russian-flagged ship? The answer: the Marinera was declared stateless. Under maritime law, a stateless vessel loses the protections of its flag and can be seized by any nation. The Marinera's illegal mid-ocean flag switch violated international conventions, making its Russian registration void in US eyes. Russia claims the ship was properly registered, but the timing and method of the flag change were highly suspect. The US saw this as a last-ditch attempt to create a diplomatic shield. By ignoring legal procedures, the Marinera's operators stripped the ship of national identity. As a stateless vessel, it was fair game, no different from a pirate ship. This legal framing allowed the US to act decisively without triggering a direct state-to-state conflict. The incident sets a precedent for future crackdowns on Shadow Fleet tankers. The Kremlin's response was swift but measured, condemning the seizure as piracy and a violation of international law. Russia insists the Marinera was a legally registered vessel and is demanding its release through diplomatic channels. The US remains firm, warning the crew could face prosecution for sanctions violations. Moscow's public outrage is tempered by the risks of direct escalation, especially given ongoing pressures from the Ukraine conflict and sanctions. Russia is walking a fine line, projecting strength at home while avoiding a wider confrontation with NATO. The incident puts Russia in a bind: respond too weakly and risk more seizures, react too strongly and risk escalation. The Marinera's fate is now a bargaining chip in a larger geopolitical standoff. The world is watching to see if Russia will escalate or seek a diplomatic off-ramp. The Shadow Fleet's future hangs in the balance. The Marinera's seizure is a major blow in the ongoing economic war against Russia, sending a clear message to Moscow and its oil industry. Each captured tanker tightens the noose on Russia's oil exports, the vital lifeblood of its economy and a key source of government revenue. Ukraine's naval campaign has already closed off the Black Sea, forcing Russia to rely on a handful of Baltic ports for its remaining export routes. This creates a choke point. Now all Europe-bound oil must pass through the North Atlantic, making Shadow Fleet tankers far easier to track and intercept. The US and its allies are now systematically targeting these ships, raising both the cost and risk of moving Russian oil across international waters. Analysts warn of terminal stress on the Russian economy as export routes shrink, profits dwindle, and international pressure mounts. The pressure campaign is intensifying, aiming to make sanction evasion prohibitively risky for anyone involved in the trade. The Marinera's capture is a warning: the era of easy shadow shipping is ending, and consequences are becoming unavoidable. The Marinera's seizure is part of a broader US strategy to reshape the global energy order. This bold move signals a new phase in how nations project power, not just through military might, but by controlling the flow of vital resources. The world is watching as the US flexes its influence on the high seas. Days earlier, a US raid in Venezuela captured President Maduro and set the stage for American control of Venezuelan oil. This unprecedented operation sent shockwaves through global capitals, raising questions about sovereignty and the lengths the US will go to secure energy dominance. By targeting both the source and the transport network of sanctioned oil, the US is squeezing adversaries like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. These actions disrupt not only the economies of these nations, but also the intricate web of global energy supply chains, creating ripple effects far beyond the immediate region. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced plans to seize and sell millions of barrels of Venezuelan oil, flooding the market and boosting US leverage. This strategy aims to weaken rivals' revenues while stabilizing prices for American allies, further entrenching US influence in the global oil market. The US has deployed its largest naval force in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis, underscoring its new energy doctrine. The show of force is meant to deter interference and reassure partners that the US is committed to protecting its interests in the region. The Marinera's capture in the North Atlantic is the next step, cutting off the Shadow Fleet's arteries. By intercepting these covert shipments, the US is sending a clear message: no route is safe for sanctioned oil. Energy, economics, and military power are now tightly linked on a new global chessboard. Every move is calculated, with nations maneuvering for advantage in a high-stakes game that will define the coming decades. The laws of the sea are being tested, and oil tankers have become military targets. International norms are shifting as navies take on new roles, blurring the line between commerce and conflict. expect more volatility in oil markets and a deepening rift between the West and Russia. As tensions escalate, every headline and every shipment could send shockwaves through the global economy. The world's oceans are now the front lines in a new era of great power competition, where control over energy routes may decide the balance of power for years to come.